Hey guys, Marzingan here, bringing you another Dragon Ball Z Dokkan battle video, and so today we are going to talk about the potential EZAs that we could see announced very soon for JP as part of the physical Dokkan Fest TOPPO celebration. Strangely, there was no EZA information in the news, but they did show some interesting art when it comes to Gotenks characters. Like, well, I say art, it's not art for characters we've never seen before, but I think it's one of those like support banners for special pose or something like that. But there was a lot of Gotenks stuff shown, and a lot of people started to hint at maybe like they're going to do something crazy out of the order of EZAs and do like Super Saiyan 3 Gotenks Super EZA or something like that. But we're going to talk about all that stuff and more in here. We were hoping that maybe we would see some news on the EZA earlier today, this morning on my stream, but we did not get any news. We could potentially see some as early as tomorrow. Now, this video will be going up 10 PM UK time, and JP normally tweets out information at 9 AM UK time. So if we are going to get an announcement soon on Twitter, it should be 11 hours from when this video is going up on the channel. So let me know what you guys think down below in the comments section before we get started, and we'll see my thoughts here and whether or not I've mentioned any or all of the units that you have considered. But before we dive into all the Gotenks stuff, I'm going to keep that for kind of the end part of the video. We're going to talk about the characters who are the most relevant for TOPPO and a TOPPO celebration. So, of course, we have to start off straight away with Jiren, right? Jiren is a Universe 11 leader. He has Universal Survival Saga as a subcategory. I'm not sure if we've had a character that has a leader skill like this get an EZA before, Yellow Coin LR, but I assume it would just be both categories would go up to being 170, which is fine as a leader skill. And then this guy, neither of his super attacks really have any useful effects. His 18 key has a medium chance to stun, which is, I mean, some events I guess you can still stun, but that needs to be high chance at the very least, right, when he gets his EZA. But then, of course, we ideally need to see some kind of super attack effect, whether it's raise defense for one turn or greatly raise or something like that. Maybe he has like greatly raise on the 18 key and then normal raise on the 12 key. So if you get additionals, you are still getting a little bit of extra defense, maybe something like that. Also, it's interesting when LRs get like, maybe he has greatly raises for one turn on his 18 key, but then has stacking defense on his 12 key. Because then the more 12 key supers you get and the more additionals you get in the later turns, the more you're building up on your defense. So that's something that would be, of course, very, very good for him. So he's always been a unit that started out strong, like on release. He has attack and defense 200%. He gets key with each attack received. He is effective against all types when the enemy is in attack down or defense down, and gets a crit when the enemy is stunned. Honestly, with the way events and stuff are now and how much HP bosses have, I really don't think it would be that OP just to give him attacks effective against all types as a guaranteed thing. Don't need to have the enemy in a status effect, and then make it a guaranteed crit when the enemy is stunned, sealed, or attack down or defense down, right? Just put all of the status effects on the crit and then give him effective against all types like all the time, right? I think that would be kind of good. And then, yeah, there's really like, because there's not much else in his passive, so his stats could bump up a little bit. Giving him some form of additional in his passive would obviously be quite good, especially if they do something with his 12 key super attack effect. The other thing, of course, nowadays is that units with just raw defense don't really necessarily work super well. So maybe he could start off with some amount of damage reduction and get key and damage reduction with each attack received, something like that. Obviously, we don't want him to start off at 0. I don't like it when characters need to get hit to get good defensively, but they don't have anything to make it so that when they take the first hits, they're able to actually tank them, right? So he would ideally need to start off with a little bit of damage reduction and then get a little bit extra with each hit, potentially. And then he does have an active skill. As we know, the condition for that can't change. It's after he receives 5 attacks. And then it's attack and defense 30%, all enemies attack and defense minus 30%, and stuns the enemies for one turn. Obviously, a lot of his passive becomes irrelevant in a lot of the difficult content, but just having the buff would obviously be very powerful. Like if they juiced that up to like attack and defense 50%, then on his active skill turn, he could go absolutely crazy. So he definitely is the one I know a lot of people want to see. If done well, he could be very, very good. He was one of the more powerful units on release when he came out. So it'll be very interesting to see what they do for him with an EZA. But now, another one I know that a lot of people want to see is this int TOPPO, like TOPPO brackets Pride Troopers, because he has a different name, so he can link with the physical Dokkan Fest TOPPO. He does supreme damage, lowers attack and defense, so obviously some revamp of his super attack effect would be nice. And then he gets attack and defense. He gets a bunch when there's 3 or more Universe 11 allies on the team. Then he guards all attacks when there's another Universe 11 ally in the same turn. So, of course, this makes him then a really good link partner for TOPPO, because he'll have guaranteed guard with him. They share a ton of links. He also supports Universe 11 categories, allies 3 key and 30% attack and defense. They could easily bump that up to 40. Now, when it comes to attack and defense 110% when there are 3 or more Universe 11 allies on the team, that's not going to be as good if, like, he's the only EZA. Like, if they EZA'd him and Jiren, although I suppose technically 3 or more allies, it doesn't say other allies. So him and then the 2 TOPPO leaders would actually count for the 3 allies, but they could easily with an EZA drop that down to 2, or they could easily just make it with another Universe 11 ally on the team. And that would be fine. That basically means that it's almost like they're essentially giving it to him for free, but just without having to remove that part of the passive completely. Just make it when there's another Universe 11 ally. But I could see it dropping down to 2, or even with the 3, like I say, with double TOPPO leads, that would be fine. Guard is nice. Maybe give him like greatly raised attack and defense on super, or maybe give him some sort of slot 1 thing where it's like before attacking, he has some damage reduction or something. And then the guard, and then having him raise defense on super for the turn or something like that would then leave him in a good spot after he supers. Because TOPPO can obviously be very good defensively, the Dokkan Fest one, but having an option that you can put in slot 1 if you want, or just have him in slot 2 for the links and the support, this guy definitely has the potential to work really, really well as a partner for the physical TOPPO. So this guy after LR Jiren, I think, is like the most wanted EZA for this celebration. Next up, we have one of the, like, basically the only other Universe 11 character that doesn't have an EZA, which is Margarita. So she is, of course, on the Universe 11 team and Universe Survival Saga. She supports Universe 11 for 40%, and then gives Realm of Gods, Siblings Bond, and Bond of Master and Disciple allies attack and defense 20%. So anyone who is in all of the categories is getting all of the buffs. I think when it comes to TOPPO, pretty much has the same categories as this guy, right? So unfortunately, not really any of those. So she can still be a good support unit on the team with the 40%. She has a medium chance to dodge, so of course we need to see that go up to at least high. And then she gets extra attack and defense with each attack performed. She can change orbs to rainbow when there's a Universe 11 ally on the same turn. So obviously that can be very useful for this team as well. She's got a pretty basic kit to start with outside of all the support. So just by bumping up all of her numbers, bumping up the numbers she gets with each attack, and of course bumping up the dodge chance, she could certainly be decent for a support for these teams. I mean, they've done this before. I could easily even see them giving her like 70% dodge, because we have like the banner unit Whis and other characters like that who are there for support, but do also have that really high dodge chance as well. So we definitely could see her get that. Now, I don't know if she's going to be as likely as some of the other options, but it's just because she's the only Universe 11, the only other Universe 11 character that doesn't have an EZA. Because someone who isn't from Universe 11, but I know a lot of people are kind of hoping to see an EZA for soon, because he was a unit that a lot of people really enjoyed when he first came out, is the physical Angel Freezer. Because this guy, I think, is still one of the few, if not only, characters in the game that has an active skill to transform that has no condition whatsoever. You can just use it straight away on turn 1. And in his base form, he's infinitely stacking defense and sealing on super. He gets extra attack and defense and a chance to dodge after he's received a hit for a couple of turns. So these getting bumped up would be really nice, right? Like if the medium chance went up to at least high, would be very nice. The defense buff could jump up by quite a bit as well. And then he debuffs the enemy's attack and defense after attacking them for 2 turns. And then, yeah, you can use his active skill straight away if you want. So, of course, he stops infinitely stacking at that point, and he massively raises attack for 1 turn. He gets attack and defense, he gets a bit extra when performing a super, and then has 50% damage reduction when HP is 49% or less. So really what they should do for this guy, because transforming him straight away turn 1 There's always an interesting option depending on the event that you're in, especially if you're like, if his first turn is actually turn 2 and you're on 49% or less HP, you could transform him straight away and have that 50% damage reduction, which could be quite good. So I think him having something like massively raise attack and raise defense for one turn would be good. And I think something that would make this guy really good is if you give him a little bit of damage reduction. Like say he has like 20% damage reduction and then has the extra 50% when HP is below a certain threshold, maybe a little bit higher than 49%, or maybe that would be too OP. But it means when they were both active, he would have 70% damage reduction, which would make him a really, really good tank and something that would be very useful for some of these other teams that he's on as well. Not just like, you know, Universe Survival Saga has a lot of good units now, but teams like Resurrected Warriors, Otherworld Warriors, Gifted Warriors, Wicked Bloodline, Mastered Evolution, Sworn Enemies, like a lot of these teams could use some really good buffs, and him becoming a ridiculous tank, kind of like the TUR Golden Freezers of old, when he gets his transformation would be super good. But there's a lot that they could do with this guy, because having the option to transform straight away and then having him fulfill 2 very different roles with very different abilities, I think is certainly very interesting. So an EZA for this guy could absolutely go hard. It would be so good. So yeah, interesting, could be an option. Now another one that I think is a little bit less likely but would certainly be cool to see is our boy Physical Bergamo. People went crazy when this guy got his TUR Awakening because of, for the time of his release, how good he was. He does supreme damage to the enemy, but raises defense by 30% for 9 turns. So you can get multiple stacks of this, and he could end up having really, really high defense. And then he has attack and defense 30% with each attack received, up to 300%. So if you finished getting all of these hits, and by that point he's already supered like 4 or 5 times, like his defense would be really, really good, at least in terms of on release. So they certainly have an interesting option available here for this guy, because he's building up with each attack received. Ideally he needs something to start out with, so whether that's start of turn stats or some damage reduction. Like imagine if this guy just had a baseline like 25% damage reduction, but then also has the attack and defense of each attack received. You could make it like 40% up to 400 maybe, and then yeah, raises defense by 50% for 9 turns on super. By the time this guy actually gets built up fully from his passive and has done a bunch of supers, his defense would be insanely high. And as we know, against some of the toughest bosses in the game now, with like the anniversary content, just having raw defense isn't enough, even if you have like 1,000,000 defense. But if you have 1,000,000 defense and something like 25% damage reduction, then you're starting to look much, much better, right? Because a 2,000,000 damage super attack effect, you cut off 25%, it becomes 1.5, 1,000,000 raw defense, you're then actually surviving that super attack. You're not tanking it for like double digits or 10k or anything, but you're surviving that super attack. So Bergamo definitely has an interesting EZA potential. And of course, you know, whilst we would hope that it'd be something a bit more TOPPO related, like a full Pride Troopers LR or something like that, the Trio de Dangers could make a very interesting Part 2 LR and then give this guy an EZA. And he would have ideally the exact same link set except for having legendary power. So he could cut out one of his worst ones like Coward, I guess. Well, I suppose, what does it give with him if you're putting them together? Yeah, it's only key. So an LR Trio de Dangers, cut out Coward and give them legendary power. Give this guy a good EZA, and then that could be super, super good for Part 2. And then we have, I brought up the Universe Survival Saga list here. Characters like Hidden God Goku, ideally we want them, they're a bit too new still compared to some of these other units, especially Jiren. But like, ideally we would want them to bring out like a new hit, and then give these guys an EZA and have them be on his 200% team or something like that, right? And then like the LR Universe 7 and the LR Golden Freezer and 17 probably would be saved for another sort of Universe 7 kind of themed celebration. And then when you start looking at everybody else, there's not that many options. There's this Mr. Boo, or Skinny Boo, Shape Up Boo, this Krillin, but they're obviously both on the Universe 7 team. But yeah, very few Universe 11 teams. Imagine if they surprise drop just like Tech, Kale, and Caulifla. Because considering the release order, they are probably a bit too new. But I mean, they dropped Super Vegeta for Saiyan Day, although that makes sense because it was a Vegeta celebration. Wouldn't really make sense for them to drop these guys out here if we weren't having a new Universe 6 character coming out. But they could potentially be really good, especially for when JP then gets the later Universe 6 EZAs that are out on Global. That could certainly be very interesting as well. Okay, and so just to get the little bit of info that I mentioned at the beginning about the Gotenks units in the end here, this was the update for JP that showed all of the celebration info, and this was the thing that we saw right here, the category Dokkan Festival. Now, if you look, we have the normal stuff like the new Dokkan Fest coming out, the banner, missions, login bonus, the sales, all that stuff. But apart from the EZA area for the April Fool's Goku, no info about an Extreme Z battle was in the news, right? So very, very interesting that they didn't show anything yet, which is what's led to this speculation, of course. But this category banner, this is the sort of banner that we see every now and then in the game, right? Where they drop a banner with category characters from whoever the new category that's come out is. But usually all of the featured units on these banners are like general pool units. They're not actual Dokkan Fest exclusives. But you can see here from the art, we've got Int Gotenks and Super Saiyan 3 Gotenks. And then there's the TOPPO that is getting, that could be getting an EZA, right? The Int TOPPO Pride Troopers that we've just discussed. So you can do a discounted 30 stone multi 3 times. This banner always has those. But yeah. Int Gotenks and Super Saiyan 3 Gotenks are featured, as well as a bunch of characters that can become LRs are all in these banners as well, but you do have a very low chance of pulling them, so I would not recommend summoning on those banners. But like, just as a comparison, I've got Global open and we still have the Android/Cell Saga, one of these banners available that came out for Saiyan Day. And this has AGL Super Vegeta, Int 16 AGL Cell Juniors, and the Physical Future 17 and AGL Future 18 as the featured characters on the banner art. And then if we go into the actual banner itself, it has the AGL Super Saiyan Vegeta. We also have the Physical 16 and 18, and that's it, right? And I believe these are guaranteed featured per multi. Are they guaranteed featured per multi? I thought they were. Yeah, they are. Yeah, they are. Which out of these? Actually, that's interesting, because normally they are. But I wonder if this one is. One pickup SSR will always appear. I'm assuming that is what the translation is for featured. Yeah, I believe, because unfortunately it is the annoying translation, it's just Google Translate. But yeah, these banners are normally guaranteed featured. So it's very interesting. Now, normally these category support banners aren't related to EZAs, which is the only thing that makes me skeptical about it being a Gotenks EZA, right? Like, usually EZAs come out and then they have their own, like, actual EZA banner that has the unit on it, and usually 2 units that are good for that Extreme Z battle. So it'd be kind of weird for a Gotenks EZA to come out, even though he's on special pose, so it's related to the TOPPO. It's interesting for him to be the EZA and then us have this kind of banner instead of a normal EZA banner. But it's worth bearing in mind that the potential is there for Int Gotenks or even the Tech Super Saiyan 3 Gotenks Super EZA, although personally I think that the probability of that is quite low. So let me know what you guys think down below in the comment section. Will it be a Universe 11 character? Will it be Frieza? Or will it be a Gotenks? What do you guys think? Let me know all your thoughts down below in the comment section. So that is going to be it for the video, guys. This has been the Masked Ningen. Smash that like button, subscribe to the channel if you are new. Check out the links down below for the Discord and the merch store, and I will see you all again soon. Have a good one.